the head coach of the University of Washington football program, Mr. Husky himself, if you will, Jedd Fisch. Good to see you, Jedd. How are you?
Right. I'm doing great.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. Good to take a little break from the recruiting trail and say hello.
Yeah, down here in Southern California. Man, there's so many ways to go with you to start this conversation, and we'll get to your program in a second. But before you're coming out here, I had no idea your college roommate at the University of Florida was
Howie Roseman. Super Bowl contender again. So so excited for Howie, and we lived together in college, and we lived in apartments together, and one of my closest friends.
Were you? What were you talking about, like, back in the day? Were you talking about coaching football, and he was talking about, putting together football teams, or not really?
Yeah, no, my favorite story is it's the day of the NFL draft in 1996 or 7, I think it was. And we're living in an apartment together. We're fraternity brothers also.
In Gainesville?
In Gainesville, Florida, yeah. And he comes down with a briefcase full of items for the draft. And he is ready to be the Jets general manager. And he was locked into that NFL draft weekend.
Why the Jets?
That was his team growing up. And
what the hell?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he went to law school and ended up at the Eagles and has been there ever since.
What was in the case?
The case was all of his information, his draft reports. They ended up taking Kyle Brady. So whatever draft that was.
I think, was that the one where they could have had Sapp?
Yes.
And they took Kyle Brady instead.
My TV took it on the chin for that one. He was not very happy with that draft pick.
Because Howie he probably wanted Sapp.
I think it was Sapp. Whoever they wanted, there were some guys that everyone thought they should have taken, and Howie was one of those people, and had quite a moment in our living room at that moment.
So that's the 95 draft.
There it is, yes.
Kyle Brady goes 9th overall to the Jets. Sapp goes 12th.
To the Bucs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because Sapp had a red flag or two.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Howie was running the Jets draft better than the Jets back in the college, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Howie's running the Jets draft. I don't know, whatever it was at that moment in time. And then, I remember saying, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm going to be a general manager one day." And I said, "Oh, okay. We'll see how that works." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" I go, "Well, I'm going to go work for Coach Spurrier. I'm going to be a college head football coach and hopefully a pro head football coach one day." And he said, "Yeah, we'll see how that works." And luckily every summer we get to celebrate that same story.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So Spurrier was the one who got you involved?
Yeah, I was a student assistant with, I think I was like the first or second ever student assistant. And then I became a GA there in 99 and 2000 with Coach Spurrier, and then had a chance to go work for Vic Fangio and Dom Capers at the Houston Texans.
And look who hired Vic Fangio to coordinate the defense.
It's amazing how that all happens.
In Philadelphia. That is amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask this question multiple times. Just fill in the blank. Your favorite Spurrier story. Give me a good Steve Spurrier story.
Oh, man.
Jedd
There's
Fisch.
so many good ones, right? But I think really my favorite one was just he was coming to my wedding, and he was driving up. And he was driving from Washington at the time. I was coaching for the Ravens, and he was driving up to New Jersey to my wedding, and he gets lost. Okay, and he calls. He kind of doesn't get off the Delaware Memorial Bridge the right way, and he calls me, and I don't know where he is. He's driving around Philly. He said, "I've circled Donovan McNabb's house twice at this point," was his line to me. I said, "Oh."
This is on your wedding day?
On my wedding day, yeah. I was on the golf course on my wedding day. I said, "Well, let me give you the phone to my dad. My dad can help you. He went to Penn. He knows Philly."
Nice.
My dad picks up the phone. He goes, "Where are you at?" And he goes, "I think you should probably pull over to a gas station and get a map." So he goes, he gets a map. He shows up at the wedding. He goes, "The only smart person in your whole family is your dad. He told me to get a map." I said, "That's the smartest piece of advice you got, was get a map." And but he was amazing. And there were so many great stories. But the fact that he made the trip up to our wedding and just to give me a chance to be a part of his staff, I'm forever grateful.
And then who was the guy who hired? Was Billick the one who hired you in Baltimore?
Billick hired me in Baltimore. No, Brian. I worked for Brian for 4 years. And that was he really was like a dad to me. And my dad passed away when I was coaching for Brian. And Brian was always, he had 2 daughters. And he always kind of took me under his wing and was just an amazing mentor and gave me so many opportunities to grow in this profession. And we stay super close to this day. But he and his family have just been amazing. And what an amazing mentor. And, he's an offensive guy. And, my favorite story, with him is I said to him one time, I said, why aren't you calling it? Why have you never been the play caller until later on in the career? He said, well, if it took me 16 hours to be a good offensive coordinator, it takes me 10 hours to be a good head coach. That's about 26 hours in a day. We don't have that. Right. So we got to figure out what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And then, of course, he took over the play calling. We went 13-3. So I said, well, how'd that go for us, Brian?
No
Maybe
doubt.
you could have done that a few years earlier.
Nice. Well, one of my favorite Billick stories that I have, having worked with him and interviewed him a couple times, is he just bristled whenever he would hear people break down Belichick by saying, well, Belichick is going to take away what you do best. We know that going into a Bill Belichick game, he's going to take away the one thing you do best. And Billick would sit there and go, like the rest of us coaches don't have the same idea. Like what the hell gives with that, So he always had that bristling aspect about him that we were ascribing things in a way to Belichick, but he was also coaching when Belichick and Brady were doing their things too, right?
Oh, yeah. He was always that way. Brian was always that way. There was this Sports Illustrated article written one time, and they were talking about Gruden and how early he wakes up in the morning. And they asked Coach Billick, well, what time do you wake up? He goes 5 minutes before Coach Gruden says he does. I mean, it was always something. It was always something with him. And he was just, I loved it because, he had that. He had. What he was is what he is. He was that tough, hard-nosed, guy that just didn't really back down to anybody.
Jedd Fisch, head coach of Washington Huskies football here on the Rich Eisen Show. When did you wind up with Bill? When did that one come?
That was that was in 2020.
So we're jumping way ahead.
Way ahead, yeah. I was at the Rams. I was with Sean in 18 and 19, and then Coach Belichick called, and in 18 we lost the Super Bowl to New England, right? And so I had to have a big, whenever I say we're having a family meeting at the house, they know we're moving.
Yeah.
So it was 2020, and I said, girls, we're gonna have a family meeting here. And I brought out like the Patriots cookies. I'm like, we're going to go to New England. And my youngest daughter goes, finally, we're going to win a Super Bowl. And then what happens? The Rams win the Super Bowl the next year. So, but we had a great run. I actually had the Cam Newton time. But another, Coach Belichick and I have been very close for a lot of years.
When did you first meet him?
2011, when I was coaching for University of Miami. One thing that Bill did, I think, better than anybody is his ties to college football are so great that he was always communicating and always trying to find out, where do you see this guy versus this guy? And we had a lot of good players on that team, from Lamar Miller to Philip Dorsett to, a bunch of Sean Spence, and he would talk about it, and he would ask you, like, compare this guy to this guy, and then as you build that relationship and trust, it just continued to get stronger and stronger. And then when I had an opportunity to go be his quarterback coach, I ran at it, and it was so awesome to be with him. And then Arizona called to be their head coach, so I wound up only being there 1 year, but we've stayed obviously extremely close. I hired his son to be our defensive coordinator last year. Bill was at our program a bunch, and I mean, he's my number one resource.
Yeah, I mean, for a while, we kept showing a photograph of Bill wearing Washington gear. I think we probably still have it to pop it up there. So he was around, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel he's equipped for this 21st century NIL world in North Carolina, if you don't mind me prying on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the best. He's phenomenal. And I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he is going to have an unbelievable plan, an unbelievable idea of how he's going to do things. He's going to know exactly what it's going to take. He's going to have great conversations, with what is it going to take to get to the next level, and also be able to handle the finances. Because what Bill did so well over 19 or 20 years, whatever it was exactly, was build a team. And he was able to have those conversations with players and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you the maximum number that maybe another player would be getting in that position, because we're also needing to sign this guard and this 3 technique and this nickel. And he was able to build it. So I think he's going to have an unbelievable run there for as long as he's going to want to do it. And Chapel Hill's certainly very lucky.
Is that the way it is now in college? Where you're basically, it is like building, because clearly we've established, we didn't even get into, and I'd love to before this interview ends, the year you spent with Pete Carroll, who's now in Vegas, and the time you spent with Jim at Michigan, who's now across the street with the Chargers. I mean, you've straddled the line of pro and college for quite some time. Is it one and the same right now, Jedd?
There's some differences that the contracts are different, right? So not everyone's a free agent every 6 months. In the NFL, that doesn't happen, right?
That's true, right?
So you have to be able to find that balance of relationship and finances versus, once you tie an NFL player down to a contract, they have a contract. I still think recruiting matters. I think that building a culture matters. We still are very much in a player-centric program, that what we do at University of Washington, what we did at Arizona. I learned so much from being with Coach Harbaugh year 1 and year 2 at Michigan, and being with Coach Carroll year 1 at Seattle. And I think when you're with these guys in their first year, as they're putting their culture in, that never goes away.
How do you install a culture? How does one? Because that's all we're hearing. Pete's going to install his culture. I've mentioned it. I have a general sense of what it is. He's always compete. He puts the signs everywhere. He really means it. Russell Wilson's the personification of it. So you can actually point to somebody, say, see, doesn't matter where you are on the depth chart, doesn't matter who we just signed as a free agent. If you work hard, you compete, you can win here. Obviously, Harbaugh, what he was able to do. He pluses a team up every single time he goes somewhere. You saw it firsthand at Michigan. He just plussed up the Chargers 6. He plussed up the Chargers 7 the Niners when he first went there. How does one install a culture? Jedd?
I think it's environmental. I think you have to have your culture everywhere. I don't think you can only touch a culture with a sign. I don't think you can only touch a culture with a team meeting. I think your culture has to be throughout your building. I think it has to be talked about daily. To me, if you ask me what our program is about, it's about becoming a pro. Everywhere in our building, it says be a pro. And we talk about being professional, resilient, and original. But when we talk about it, it has to be every day of a pro makes sure that he never misses class. A pro makes sure that he takes care of his body in the training room. A pro understands that they have a short timeline to be as successful as they want to be. And to have that type of mentality, we're going to help you get there. But in our building, that's going to be plastered all over the place. And we're going to continue to strive to help these guys be the best they can possibly be. But being a professional in anything, to me, is being elite in what you're trying to get done. And you just have to talk that culture. And Coach Carroll is phenomenal at it. I mean, I think if you were to ask me what's Jim Harbaugh's culture, I'd say football is everything. I mean, football is everything. Like, he is just such a great, my favorite Harbaugh conversation.
Please.
Coach Harbaugh, and you would love this, obviously, we're at Michigan and we're talking and we have all these different things. We're going satellite camps, and then we're trying to figure out what we're going to do on offense and figure out how many plays we're going to put in. I said, maybe sometimes, less is more. And he looks at me with his face. He goes, how could less be more? More is more. Less is less. And I look back at him and I go, I mean, I guess I can't argue that. And he said, Jedd, more is more. I said, there it is. More is more. I will never say less is more ever when talking to you.
But I understand that less can actually mean more. Is that
don't try to explain that to him.
Oh my God. Well, birds make you nervous. If you eat birds, they're nervous. They're nervous.
Chicken.
Chicken. Don't eat chicken.
Nervous bird.
I know. I mean, I'm unbelievable. The satellite camps. I remember that Jim pissed some people off when he first showed up to Michigan, and he starts holding Michigan satellite camps in SEC country.
Yeah, we were there. We ran through, I think it was 72 camps in 28 days. We were doing 3 camps a day. We were getting on an air. We had Dale Earnhardt's plane, and we got on that plane and we flew. We could be in Georgia, then we could be in Florida, then we could be doing a camp in the middle of Tennessee. I mean, it was unbelievable, and it was so much fun looking back on it now because it's a story for life.
Yeah.
But during that 28-day span, his stamina Second to none.
Well, I mean, he would. So you were hopping on. You, Jim Harbaugh, are hanging on Dale Earnhardt's plane, flying around, retooling the Michigan program,
and about 30 other people. It was it was unbelievable. Yeah, it was this plane that we borrowed. I think it was this black plane. It was amazing, and we had it for like 4 weeks or 3 weeks, and we just tooled around and we just promoted the program, and we would drop everywhere. You know, you remember the shirtless Jim picture when we were in Alabama. Yeah. Then a day later, we might have been in the middle of Kansas City. I mean, we were everywhere, and
were you there with him when he stayed over in the treehouse?
Yeah, that was the kicker, Quinn Nordine.
You were there.
I was there.
You were Were you sleeping in the treehouse too?
No, I was sleeping in the Marriott courtyard. But you gotta love Jim. But he's the best. I mean, he's in that. I feel so blessed in to have the coaches that I've worked for and learn from, because they're all different and unique, but they all win, and that's the best part about it.
Jedd Fisch here of the University of Washington football program, and it's amazing you're coaching in the Big Ten again. I still can't get over it. Man. Everything is totally changed now, and Washington, Oregon, 2 schools down here in Southern California, all in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten winning back-to-back championships too. It looks like we're living in the big. I don't know how people in the Southeast are handling it. But,
so awesome.
I
would just say this. It's a national conference. That's what's the separator about the Big Ten versus all these other conferences.
Right.
It's national. It's just like the NFL. Like, we're at Washington and we're flying across and playing Rutgers. Then we're going and we're playing Indiana. We're playing Iowa. We're playing in every time zone. Mm-hmm. You have an opportunity. We're hosting Ohio State next year. We're going to the Big House next year. We're hosting Oregon. We're going to Madison, Wisconsin. It's just so exciting to be in this conference. The games are so awesome every week, and we got to make sure we got good enough players to compete every week.
Who am I seeing at the Combine? Pound the table here for me, Jedd. Who am I going to be seeing in Indianapolis talking about maybe in the draft for you, Jedd?
I really hope. Well, there's 2 groups, right? There's that group at Arizona that we had.
Sure, please.
That I can't wait to see Tetero McMillan, right? Who we recruited, who came to us, and he'll be a top 10 pick. I really believe that. Probably the best wide receiver in the country. Big Jonah Savanea, an offensive lineman that we had. I think he'll be a first-round pick. He's phenomenal. I really am hoping to see guys like Carson Bruner, Mark Bruner's son. Was our starting linebacker at Washington this past year. I'm really hoping that he has that opportunity to be at the Combine. But, I really feel like the way the team went, there were so many guys from Washington that were at the Combine a year ago that we were in this rebuilding stage. I really hope to see Will Rogers, our quarterback from Mississippi State that transferred to us his final year, have an opportunity there. And, it's just it's a great moment to watch him at the Combine, to be a part of that. And I really am excited to see where T-Mac goes, knowing him since my wife's flying out to Honolulu for his draft day party. And we're just excited to be a part of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That really is great. And I your journey, we don't even talk about McVay too. Because I know when I saw you at the Clipper game, which is great. I'm glad I ran into you, which is what's led to this conversation here. McVay was right across the way, sitting there courtside, and you're like, "Yeah, I was just seeing Sean here." I mean, what is a conversation between Jedd Fisch and Sean McVay, if you don't mind me being a fly on the wall, sound like as you're talking football, or just talking about programs and installing culture and being coaches? What about that?
I think, Sean schematically is elite, but Sean culturally is even better.
I hear that all the time.
He's amazing.
How so? What can you do to describe that?
He's a constant learner, and he's a constant listener, and he's always talking to the best of the brightest, and in the profession and in leadership.
Well, he's that now. I mean, people are going to him like he's the mount now that you go see.
I go to him, and then I get whatever information he's gotten from everybody else.
No
but he's so smart. He's such a great listener. He puts together such a clear and concise plan every year on what he wants his team to look like, what he wants the messaging of that year to be. But the part that I love so much about Sean is that his consistent message of connectivity, that will be one that I think he is a pillar of his program, and how connected the staff is, how connected the staff is with the players and how connected the players are. We really pride ourselves to try to be like that. We talk about the Rams in such high regard in our facility at Washington because Sean's culture of connection is what allows them to handle any adversity.
Yeah, I know. We were talking about how many wins he has at a certain age and how he's, got records for his age, but he's also got records for people already in his by being certain numbers before your mid 40s, and he's not going to be in his mid 40s till 2031. He's just way ahead. So do you guys just chop up X's and O's, stuff that you've worked on, and then he picks your brain, and he's got stuff that he's worked on? Yeah. And then vice versa. That's how it works?
It is. And we zoom X's and O's and we talk culture is kind of what I would say. We have a lot of, and then we try to share at least 2 or 3 times a year we get together, hoping to bring him out for our coaching clinic and then spend a day or two around that with him and with Chris Shula also. But with Sean, like chopping up the X's and O's is so good because we run the same offense. We do the same stuff. So we're able to always talk about what's kind of the new up and coming, let's call it, what can we adjust or tweak to make it a little bit better for 2025 and beyond. And then on the same token, just to be able to say, hey, how are you handling this situation? Situational football is really the separator. And the more we can talk through that, and he calls me almost after every one of our games, texts me after our games, I text him after his, and just be able to just talk about 1 or 2 segments in the game. I'm so appreciative of him.
Jedd Fisch, you are the man. So what are the next few weeks, months? Look for a major college head coach of a program like Washington. What does it look like?
Well, we got 4 days left of recruiting. So tonight to San Francisco, then the red eye to Jersey, then down to Florida for 4 days, just for these final 4 days. And then it's about football. It's about February, getting our team together. And February and March, we're committed to seeing how connected we can be as a team. And then spring ball starts, and we'll see how good we can get. But I love our team. I love where our team's going. We're young. And but I've said I've never heard an NFL coach say we're going to build our team through free agency. So we're not going to build our team through the portal. We're going to build it through high school recruiting.
So that's old school. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
like we're used to. So do you have your quarterback right now?
We do. We have a freshman quarterback that just he started the last 2 games. I think he's elite. I think he's going to be super special. He threw for 5 or had 5 touchdowns in our bowl game. And I think this kid, Damon Williams, is going to be someone to keep an eye on for years to come. And I can't wait to coach him the next 2 to 3 years and then be able to talk about him going to Indianapolis for that combine.
No kidding, man. All right. Well, I root for you, sir, with the exception of one day in the big house, as you know.
I do know that.
But that's no offense, though.
No,
right?
no offense taken.
Okay, you understand it. You understand. That'll be a pretty neat moment for you, too.
I can't wait.
I know you beating Michigan probably was a nice moment, obviously, but going there, I'm sure that's going to be pretty neat for you. Because and it's just pretty, like I said, I just wanted to interview you and get through. You've got so many vast experiences at both levels in so many different spots. You're kind of like a tapestry of different coaches and different styles all in one, man. So from Spurrier all the way through to the current day. It's pretty cool.
Well, I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on. Just an awesome experience to be a part of it and talk football with a guy that I've watched on TV year in and year out.
You're a good man. Thanks, Jedd. I appreciate it. Everybody check out Jedd Fisch's exploits and wins up in UW country. Thanks for being here. That's Jedd Fisch sending him off to different parts to get his program better right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.